So when we were last with the Wanders of Cinnithel, they had begun their preparations to undertake the quest to recover some of the sand from the Pool of Haltor so they could take it back to the monastery that was the root of the restoration and have the Dreamfire be reignited and restore its power to the land, pushing back the blight. Now, this was supposed to be a mini campaign, so it was only supposed to run about 6 or 7 sessions, and we were getting to 6, and schedules were beginning to fill up, and we really wanted to feel like we came to some satisfactory conclusion to the adventure. So we began to do some role-playing in between sessions in our Discord chat. We did it out in the open, so all the characters knew what was going on, but we had a good time, and people got to do their own little side quest before we got to the conclusion, and that was really helpful. So, as we come to the conclusion of the Wanders of Cinnithel and the Legend of Dreamfire, let's roll it. Inside our Discord chat, Ingva, along with the NPC Wander Cleric, who is now joining the party, Stonefist Clemhart, they went to the Sanctuary, where they were going to join some of the novice apprentices there in helping to create some healing scrolls. They had just had a massive battle, at least for Cinnithel, inside the town, and so healing potions were at a premium. Didn't have a lot to hand out. And so they thought maybe they could rush some of these scrolls out and get it to the party, that they might have some help on the journey. But because it was rushed and because it was being done by novices, including Ingva, who was not a high enough level cleric to really do this to the satisfactory way that the Dreamer wants it done, there was going to be a chance that one of these scrolls could go wonky. And so I ended up creating a roll table that if you rolled a 5 or a 6 on a d6, you had to go to a roll table and something rather interesting would happen. They could overheal and it become a mass heal for all the friendly characters in the area except for the one reading it. But the one reading it would have to drop the scroll because it was going to go on fire and they might actually take damage. That was my favorite one. It could under heal. So it could, instead of doing a 1d6 plus 1, it was only going to do a 1d4 plus 1. That sort of thing. And I was really hoping that at some point during the battle, they were going to be like, we need the scroll, and have it just completely go sideways. And it did. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Avenwin took Freya and another NPC who we've met before, Erevan Vanfield, that elf from the Menoi Elves, who was also going to be joining the party on this quest. And they went to the local armory to see if they could get some upgraded weapons. Avenwin did not have a sword. He had a staff. He really thought that's all he needed, but he wanted something with a little more quality. And so he grabbed himself a master crafted sword, which was very well balanced and would give a +1 to hit, but it wasn't magic and it wouldn't give an increase to damage. It would just be easier to swing. Freya was there and she wanted some daggers that would be good for throwing, and the same type of thing. Is there anything that's going to give me an edge? And actually, one of the Wanderers who had died during the battle had commissioned a pair of expert throwing daggers that, just like the expert sword or the master sword, Zelda reference, this would give a +2 hit, but not damage. It wasn't a magical weapon. It was just really well done. And she took it. And then Freya did something that is very totally Freya, but was unexpected for me. She went, well, now, is there any poison around here that I could put on this? Now, poison is totally against the work of the restoration. They're trying to heal things. They're not trying to poison things. So the halfling who was running the armory looked at her and said, listen, Freya, I don't know how many times I have to tell you this, but poison is not our policy. We're healers. We're not destroyers. She went, okay, whatever. And then he kind of leaned in and said, just go look in your pouch. She was all excited. And the halfling didn't give her poison, but he did give her essentially what turns out to be a sleeping potion. It's a very weak one. It would only knock people out for 1 or 2 rounds of combat. And the save against it was actually pretty weak. But hey, any edge that she could get, she was going to take. She went, yes. We determined that if you coated it would last on the blades for like an hour and a half or something like that. So that was really fun. And we did all that via chat over the course of about a week and a half. It was a lot of fun. Just being able to take characters on their own trips. We didn't have to worry about who was on when. We just waited for people to be able to respond, and it was really entertaining. I had actually done that with my other party doing dreams and visions where only one character was involved, but I'd never done it for a full downtime session. If you haven't tried something like that, doing that kind of asynchronous role-playing, I really highly recommend it. But the time came for them to board the ship, travel up the Sauter River, and go to a prearranged spot that would take them on the path that would lead up to the old Shrine of Haltor. This was not a hidden place, but it wasn't really publicized either. Most of the folks who had any kind of rank inside the Restoration knew where it was. The Wanderers had heard of it. And they did keep a small guard there, but it wasn't like a place of pilgrimage or anything like that. They tried to keep it on the down low without making it public. The party was let off, including their 2 NPCs who'd now joined them. They were played by some of the players in the party. They were told by the captain of the ship, we'll wait here until you come back, and then we'll travel over to Therapon, and from there we will travel north to the monastery and reignite the Dreamfire. Ingva is all full of pride that she's doing this great task for the Restoration. Avon's along for the ride. Freya wants to stab things. So that's kind of Freya's job. And they march up the mountain pass. There's no wandering monster encounters that they had on the way up. Gave a little bit of description of seeing some signs of stuff that was going on. There was that ominous report from the Restoration saying that they'd lost contact with the guards a few months earlier. Wasn't that unusual, but given the light of events that had gone on, they should be worried and expect to encounter something there. So as they approached the Shrine of Haltor, they saw a tomb that was really carved out of the side of the mountain. Here, the Blight and the Living Lands were meeting. There was a lot of sandstone, and so they kind of carved it out of that. Have you ever seen images of Petra? That's the kind of feeling I was going for. And they were about to go into the shrine, or at least check the opening for the shrine, when out from behind one of the 2 statues of a very imposing dwarf, Haltor being a god who had taken on the image of a dwarf and was actually the only god who had died during the Chaos War that led to the world in which the players were playing. So this is kind of a big deal. The sand they were going to grab was actually part of Haltor's remains. It's a little creepy on that point. But out from one of the statues emerged this ugly-looking spider-like wolf with 8 legs and a big abdomen, and it was just nasty. And it got a little bit of damage in, but the party quickly was able to take it out. Freya got to use her poison daggers, which made her very happy. I don't think that the wolf went to sleep, but she was pleased that she got to use it. With that dispatched, they're now looking around going, well, we've never seen anything like this before. What are we going to do? And they go in very quietly, and they open up the door to the main hall that leads up to the shrine itself. And they see 2 things. One, they were told that the shrine was essentially a straight shot. You go in and the pool is at the end of a hallway. But there's a curtain there that's now blocking it off. And they're not sure what to do about that. And also from both sides of the hallway, there appears to have been new construction. It's almost like creatures have been digging out their own tunnels inside the shrine. So now they know there's definitely something going on. They creep in and they're very, very quiet. They try to be as stealthy as possible, but they're taking a really long time. In old school, when you're inside the crawl, you're moving at essentially your movement rate every 10 minutes. And they're moving pretty slow. They want to check everything out. They want to see what's going on. So I started rolling wandering monster checks, and wow, did they begin to get unlucky. Every time I ended up rolling for a wandering monster check, it came up 1. There's an encounter. The first one that happened was a little bit comical. I don't know why, but in all of the worlds and all the campaigns I have run, which is all of 3 at this point, kobolds often become cooks for stronger creatures. Why these trap-building miners like cooking in my world, I don't know. They just seem to want to be in the kitchen. Who knows? On that first wandering monster roll, a kobold walks out. Looks like he's heading to the pantry. And I actually rolled for surprise because this is a shocking moment. And the kobold achieves surprise and the players are freaked out. They're like, oh no! And he goes, oh! and turns around and backs back into the door, closes it, and they can hear an audible click. Great. They're like, oh shoot, there's definitely creatures here. By this point, they've discovered 3 doors. There are 2 to the left side of the passage in the new hallway that's been carved out from the shrine, and there's 1 on the right side of the passage. They're not going in any of these doors. They don't want to know what's in there. And so Yngve gets the idea, let's spike the doors shut. Really, really great idea. This is an incredible, incredible thought. So she starts spiking the door shut. First, she does the cobalt. She spikes that door shut. And then she goes across the hallway, and she goes to hammer the doorway shut over on the right. But as she's doing it, I roll Wandering Monster again, because it's been a long time by this point. And sure enough, 1 comes up. She's about to put the spike into the ground, and the door opens up in front of her face. This time, she's the one who achieves surprise, because the Dwaro, this dwarf-like creature who has been corrupted by the power of chaos, he's not expecting anyone to be there. And Yngve, oh yeah, and she swings. She misses, but at least she got her swing in, and everybody now knows there's a problem over here. There were about 4 of these Dwaro over in that room. They are a little bit tougher than the ones that they had encountered back in the sanctuary in Cinnithel, but they're not exactly strong. There's no casters among them. They're just kind of like the foot troops. This appears to be a barracks, and somebody was coming out to get something. Maybe the kobold was late with dinner. I don't know. But a battle ensued, and it generally is fast. The players take a little bit of damage, but the Dwaro all went down relatively easy, and people are going, we just don't know what to do. Now we've got hallway to the left, hallway to the right. We know there's monsters here. We know there's kobolds who are over in that door. We spiked the door shut. More on that in a minute. And now we have this curtain in front. We need to get out of here. We're going to go straight. Pull back the curtain. So Abinwen grabs the curtain and pulls it away. And the hallway, as described, is there, all the way down to the end where there's a large double door. But right after this curtain are a pair of 4 alcoves across from each other with statues on the inside. And they are looking around going, there's got to be a trap here. Abinwen does not know what to do. Abinwen just wants to get going. We've got to get out of here. Yngve goes, well, where's that passage go? Because when she went in to spike the door, she saw that it actually wound around and moved further into the depths of the shrine. Well, maybe there's a way to get around it from down there. Let's go take a look. No. We just need to go straight. Abinwen stepped over the threshold between the 2 statues and triggered a trap. 2 blades come flying out. They just miss him as he ducks and rolls forward, and he finds himself in a blank space between the 2 pairs of statues in those alcoves. And he goes, well, okay, so there's traps. Now he doesn't know what to do because he's stuck. He doesn't want to go back because the blades look scary, and he's really not sure what on earth is going to be in front of him. Kind of wish he actually had gone and triggered the second trap, because that would have been entertaining for everybody, but, oh well. Yngve goes, fine, you stay there. I am going to go, and I am going to go up and try to figure out what's going on. And she and Freya and the other 2 companions who are there, they begin to move around the sanctuary, and they do find that it does indeed double back into the main hallway just after the traps. The curtain was there to remind everybody who was part of this chaotic arrangement, this is not the way to go, and the party ignored it. Oh well, what are you going to do? Yngve's just about ready to go to the hallway and see if there's a way to deactivate the traps, but as they come around, they notice there is another door. There's something in there. There's got to be. They've seen creatures behind every other door. What are we going to do? And Yngve goes, I'm going to spike it shut. And that's what she does very quietly. Boop, 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 boop. Quietly puts a stake in front of the door. Do you roll to see if anybody notices it? Nobody notices anything. There's now a spike in front of this door. Okay? They now proceed to go back out towards the main hallway. Freya goes out first. She's going to look for a way to disarm the traps. And indeed, she does. She finds a little hidden switch on the wall and click, and you can hear the statues. There was a buzzing that people had heard, but their brains were kind of filtering out. But as soon as it went quiet, everybody went, oh, okay, they're off now. And Avonmund goes, great, let's get going. But they've been a really long time. By this point, I roll another wandering monster check. And yep, it comes up 1. There's 2 more guards who are way up the hallway in another one of those carved off passages who are in their own little guard room. They heard something, they open the door, and now combat is on. The players move forward to try to engage these creatures and see if they can dispatch them quickly and as quietly as possible so that they can continue on with their mission. And Ingva is back in the hallway. She's just gotten done spiking the door shut. Well, she thinks she spiked the door shut because when the kobolds went back into their room that Ingva also thought she spiked the door shut, she failed to notice that the door opened in off the passageway. So she's put a spike there, but the door opens the other way. And so this is a little bit of a problem because as initiative goes on in that first round of combat, the door opens up and now there is one of those larger Dwaro that they had encountered in the sanctuary who was able to do things like cast cleric spells. This is a Dwaro priest. Ingva turns and she's like, oh no. And in that first round of combat, this Dwaro priest looks up. The second round, it kind of peters out and she's able to escape it. Finally, after about 5 rounds of combat, we actually had to stop our session and come back the next week because it had gone on so long. The Dwaro guards are down, that one priest is down, and they're now a little bit tense because they've used resources, they've cast spells, and they're now beat up. They've taken some damage, and we have no idea what's going to be ahead of us in that room by the Pool of Haltor. And so they very cautiously now go up the hallway. They find that it is locked. But they had searched the body of that dwarf, and they found a key, and they realized, there's a key here. Let's go. Just kidding. They did find the key and failed to recognize that key door. Maybe they've never played Zelda, I don't know. And instead they had Freya pick the lock, which she did. She rolled really well in her lock picking. So, there's more than one way to get through a locked door, even when you have the key. And they opened up, and there they see a wonderful sight. It is a shallow pool with black sand on the bottom of it. And standing over the pool is a statue of a dwarf-like figure holding a lantern over the pool. It is glowing with divine light, kind of filling the room with this soft glow. And they realize, we've reached the Pool of Haltor. Let's go get the sand and get out of here. And at that moment, they hear a laugh. And stepping out of the shadows seems to be a statue. Now, they had gone into the priest's chamber and they'd seen a small shrine that had a small statue in it of a very grim-faced, otherwise beautiful woman, but very grim-faced, very haughty, kind of with eyes that look like they just disdained everything about you. And as they come into the hall and this figure steps out of the shadows, they realize this is the statue, only bigger, and it's talking. It laughs at them and says, "Oh, why are you fighting me? I only wish to set you free." This is an avatar of the Sleeper, of the god that the other continent recognizes now as Shakath, the Destroyer. She is wanting to destroy the whole world and return it to chaos so that everyone can be free. She's the hero of her own story. The battle gets underway. It is furious. Ingva takes a lot of damage. Freya barely stays on her feet. And at one point, Ingva pulls out one of the scrolls, and I go, please, 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 misfire. And indeed, it does. She rolls, and she rolls a misfire on it, goes to the roll table and rolls again, and it's an overcast. Something happened. Maybe somebody had an extra heavy line on one of the lines of the scroll, and it just made the scroll explode. It burst into flame. But healing energy went out to some of her companions, and they all took damage. So this healing was really, really welcome. But Ingva was worried about herself. She was pretty far down, and now she's got this flaming thing in her hands, and she had actually a reflex save against Death Ray. And if she didn't, she was going to take pretty significant amount of fire damage. But thankfully, she makes the save. She drops the scroll as it completely gets ignited, and she's going, Okay. Everybody else is feeling good. She's now feeling terrible, and combat continues to roll on. Ingva finally decides, just don't care anymore. My life doesn't matter. It's a very Ingva moment. She's totally into this, and she decides she's going to engage this avatar of the sleeper and try to bring it down. And this is exactly what happens. Unfortunately, for most of the players who are attacking her, they have either piercing weapons like arrows or they have swords, and she's made of stone. She's kind of resistant to these things, and they're not damaging her as much as they think. And Ingva's going, I need to take care of this. She steps up. Stonefist, the other cleric, comes around. They both have their maces up. Freya manages to get a healing potion to Ingva at one point, so she's not quite down as far. And the battle is engaged again. At one point, however, a couple of interesting things happens. First, Erevan realizes our goal is not to destroy this avatar. That's a delay. Our goal is to get some sand. So I am going to run. I'm going to get some sand. I'm going to grab it in my hands. I'm going to try to get out of Dodge and run out of this place. And that's what she does. She grabs the sand, she turns, and she sprints out of the room, where she encounters another one of those Dwaro who had emerged from one of the unexplored tunnels. And this one's a priest. He looks at her, she looks at him, and he holds out his hands, and she begins to feel herself tense up. He just cast Hold Person. Erevan, though, she's an elf, got a little bit of magic resistance. She's able to shrug it off and then sprint out of melee range of him the next turn on initiative and gets well past him out of the sanctuary, well out of range. She's now got the sand. She's achieved the goal. And the rest of the party is now kind of stuck because now this other priest moves in from the back and there's danger to be had. The combat goes back and forth another couple of rounds until finally, I forget who did it at this point. I really should take notes, but I think it was Ingva who finally took her mace and just smacked her along the shoulder of the statue, crushed it, and it began to crumble down as the god kind of mocked in laughter as she collapsed. At this point, the other priest fails his morale check. He tries to turn and bolt, but he does not get far. Doesn't have a great movement, and so he goes down. The battle is done. They have no desire to go explore any of the other tunnels. They know that the traps in the hallway have been disabled. They know they can get out, and that's what they do. They get out of Dodge as fast as they possibly can. They catch up to Erevan. Everybody takes a deep breath, and they make their way back down to the ship. And that was pretty much the end. The rest of the story was narrating their journey from their spot where they had landed all the way to the town of Therapon and far up north to the monastery, where they witnessed something they never thought they would ever witness. Not only the Dreamfire burning, but to see the Dreamfire reignited using one of the elements that they had brought. And that was kind of the end of their journey. We had a wonderful time. It was a neat story. I loved the final combat and great role-playing on part of all these players, some of whom really had not played before. So it was kind of fun to go into a role-playing heavy situation and watch them thrive. It was really cool. And as a special treat, I did two things. First, I made a fillable PDF, which I got to them a couple days later, so they all had their character sheets to go with them. So I thought that was kind of fun. And the other thing I did was I made kind of a closing credits. And I'm going to share that with you in a little bit. Next week, I'm going to finally get back to my reviews. I'm going to review Low Life 2090, which is a fantastic game by the person who created Low Fantasy, which is something I need to pick up at some point. So, enjoy the credits, and until then, happy playing, everyone.